in my life of knowing that to be true. One that is a real favorite is being in a redwood forest it's the Arnold State Forest, which is a part of a larger natural forest in the Sierra Nevadas. Just walking into there is enough to make you fall to your knees, because the presence of God, the creator of all, is so, so prevalent. It surrounds you, it fills you, you become it. That's one of the gifts of nature. Another way I know that God is always with me is through music. There is a particular Mozart sonata for winds. The first time I heard it, I was also in California. And it was one of those days. There's a poem by E.E. Cummings that one of the lines is, "Never before had the world known, heard so many yeses." It was that kind of a day in my experience. And when I hear that being played on WPR classical music station, I'm transported back to that moment, and my heart fills up with that same sense of never, once again, the feeling of just hearing yes from the universe. And over the weekend, I've had 2 wonderful weeks of vacation, which I haven't done that for a long, long time, not 2 weeks. And on my way home from Traverse City a week ago, I heard a song. The name of it is "You Are a New World." It's by the King's College Choir from England. And yesterday, I heard it played again on the radio station, WPR. Coincidences like that? Not coincidences, but signs that God, the presence of, is right with me wherever I am. And so we begin today's service with that assurance that right where you are, right where you're sitting, right where you're standing. If you're at home, you might be doing something else and not just sitting still listening. Wherever, whatever, whoever, however, God is right with you. Nothing beats that. And so we can begin. I will ask you to join me in saying together our vision statement. You can read it from up here. A world powerfully transformed through shared spiritual awakening. And our mission? Advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. And our value statement: abundance, acceptance, community, diversity, integrity, joy, and love. And for our children in celebration, Unity of Appleton sees the divinity in all children and nurtures their unfolding spirituality. And that brings me to the daily word for today. Holy. I discover holiness wherever and in everyone. There are certain places I visit where the presence of God feels especially near, places that feel holy. These may include churches and other houses of worship, shrines, favorite places in nature, any destination where I become vividly aware of the divine presence is holy ground. I remember these words from the Prayer of Protection by Unity poet James Dillett Freeman. Wherever I am, God is. The divine presence I know lives within me. It's the true essence of my life and of every life. Today my understanding expands. I discover the divine presence all around me and find holiness everywhere. Every person is a holy being. Every place is holy ground. And I'll add that everything is a holy entity. And from Genesis, then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I didn't know it." You, me, that's how it goes. And now a song, right?
Yes.
Okay, hit it.
When I'm feeling blue, all I have to do is see the love in you. Then I'm not so blue. No, when we're together, there's nothing we can't weather. We can change the whole world, me and you. Wouldn't you agree? Everyone you see shares a groovy kind of love. Shares a groovy kind of love. Anytime you want to, you can turn your mind to all that lies within you. Anytime at all. When the world feels crazy, everything is hazy. You can turn within and turn it on. Wouldn't you agree? Everyone you see shares a groovy kind of love. Shares a groovy kind of love. When I'm feeling blue, all I have to do is see the love in you. Then I'm not so blue. When we go within, we find the things that matter. All our fears will shatter if we try. Wouldn't you agree? Everyone you see shares a groovy kind of love. Shares a groovy kind of love. We share a groovy kind of love.
And now I get to welcome and introduce you to Reverend Evin Wilkins. Evin is a graduate of the Unity Urban Ministerial School, and he's an ordained minister, a Unity minister. He is the co-minister for Courageous Living in Unity, a new alternative unity ministry. Evin enjoys spending time with his wife, Mindy, their fur babies, reading, writing, yoga, shamanistic studies, and learning to play the guitar. We've had the pleasure of Evin actually being here, and that always gives me a different feel. He's going to be on the screen, but having had his presence here, I have a different, wonderful sense of him. So, welcome, Reverend Evin. There you are. There you are.
Hey, good morning, Appleton. How are you all doing? All right, I see hands clapping. I'm going to take that as a good sign. Hey, I like that song, Groovy Kind of Love, because it's kind of synchronistic, because my shirt today says that love is my superpower. So we are all on key with our synchronicity, it looks like, today. So, anyway, happy to be here. Thank you all for having me back. I've been here before, so several of you probably know that recently, my wife Mindy and I, we recently relocated back to Washington State. Now, we're originally from Texas, hence the accent, but that's not where we came back to Washington from. We relocated back from the state of Wisconsin. Yay, Wisconsin, cheeseheads and all of that kind of stuff. And actually, we did learn that we really like fried cheese curds. So, yeah, it's a good thing. But we were actually living in Madison because, again, probably of you may already know, but I was serving at the senior minister at the Unity of Madison. And Wisconsin is a great state. I do not have any complaints about your state at all. Well, okay, maybe there's only two that I have. Now, one you could probably guess, coming from a Texan. It was your cold winters. In fact, I think the day that I was there in person was really cold. It was like in January or something like that. So there was snow and ice on the ground and all that kind of stuff. And to me, the place got really cold. And what I found to be the most frightening about that was that people at my church used to tell me, well, it's not as cold as it used to be. And I'm thinking, could it possibly be any colder? Now, the other thing about Wisconsin that I didn't like was that there was Green Bay Packers stuff everywhere. Okay, now I'm probably never going to be invited back, but anyway. But that's hard coming from a recovering Dallas Cowboy fan and now a Seattle Seahawks fan. But I used to joke about that with my congregation a lot. We always had a really good time. But I suppose we're not here to... So what I want to talk about today is some wisdom that I learned from a very wise person. But it's also going to be a little bit of a story of sorts and a little bit of my own thoughts around some of that wisdom that I learned. So I mentioned a couple of things that that were my only complaints about Wisconsin. But now I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I did enjoy there. So I arrived in Madison. It was late 2019. And I'm sure that most of you can probably imagine what happened shortly after my arrival. The pandemic hit. And then, of course, shortly after that, our church was closed, just like most of the other churches. And as a result, I really didn't get to know a pretty big portion of my congregation before that happened. But on the flip side, I also feel like I was given a wonderful gift because I got to know some of my congregants really well. Now, I'd run these virtual lunches where we'd meet on Zoom and we would have lunch together. And several congregants continued to reach out to me as well during that time. You know, they wanted to stay in touch and wanted to start to build a relationship and really get to know me and me them. We'd meet on Zoom and have chats, or we would have physically distanced, visits in the church sanctuary. And while I grew fond of so many of those that I kept in touch with, there was one particular person that I want to bring into the conversation today. He was a man by the name of Ken. Now, Ken wasn't like a lot of people, and I'll get into why during the talk today. The first thing I want to say about Ken is that he lived life on his own terms. Now, he exemplified this by the joy that life seemed to bring him in each and every moment. It was almost as if he seemed to dance or to kind of float through life and with everything that he was doing. He didn't live his life by conforming to who others thought he should be. For instance, he didn't ask himself what others would think before coming to church wearing this giant pink wig. I mean, it was like stuck up way up here. But he did it in honor of breast cancer awareness. He didn't ask other people what they thought about him coming to church with pink nails. You know, he'd paint his nails pink or black. Or what others thought before jumping in really excited wearing a Scooby-Doo tie. You know, Scooby-Doo was one of my favorites when I was younger. So, hey, I was all about that. But another thing about Ken is that he did not have a shy bone in his body. His name was well known and is still well known around Madison for his spiritual work, but for the spiritual fairs and events that he would facilitate around town as well. And he actually told me one time about how he was able to get Deepak Chopra into town to speak at one of his events. He also got Marianne Williamson, Dr. Wayne Dyer. You know, you can't be a shy person to reach out to them and get them into town. But while these things I mentioned about Ken are great, that's not really what I want to talk about today when it comes to Ken. Ken was one of those people that kept in close touch with me during the pandemic. And one of the things that I began to admire the most about him was that he was one of those people, when you spent time with him, when he spent time with you, it was as if you were the only two people in the entire world. And I say that because he truly listened. He was fully present in that moment. He wasn't looking over his shoulder at other distractions going on around him. He didn't seem to be sitting there just waiting for that opportune moment to just jump into the conversation and to share a story about himself or, to give you unsolicited advice or anything like that. He truly listened. And he would remember, like I would mention something to him, and weeks or months later, he would actually approach me and say, "Hey, Evan, how did, that work out with whatever?" Showing that he truly listened to what I said when I spoke. Now, Ken made his transition to the spiritual realm in early 2021. And not long after, his wife, who also attended our church, she invited me into their home. And she invited me in so I could begin to sift through some of Ken's books. He had, a library of spiritual books. And she thought that some might interest me to take home and to, take up to the church. So I went through his books and walked out with a big stack to add to my own library. Now, recently, after moving to Washington State, I was unpacking my books, and several of them were some that I got from Ken's house, and I kind of stacked them over in a corner of my office. And recently, after shelving those books, I began to notice that every time I would walk by my bookshelf, one would catch my attention. So I finally decided to open it, and I found out why I think it continued to grab my attention. So while the content of the book is excellent, I don't think that that's why I discovered it. Hidden within the pages of that book is what I believe to be as a message from Ken. Now, the message I found within the book was kind of a diagram of sorts. And in the middle of that diagram was Ken pondering different ways in which he could better serve his community. And in it, he also ponders several points and asks himself several questions. And one of the ones that really grabbed my attention was a question he asked and says, "Why have community?" So I take that question and I really ponder it to myself. Why have community? And is community even necessary? So I don't think there's not one of us here today that's either there in person or watching online that isn't aware of the things that are going on right now outside of ourselves during the time in which we live. Things going on around our entire planet and here in our very own country and often in our very own towns and communities and cities. There's been lots of fighting and lots of division. There's been lots of us versus them and them versus us. There's been disagreements, whether they're political or there's something else altogether. And lots of times those disagreements have fractured or even completely severed relationships that were perhaps once very important to us. Maybe some of us had finally had the courage even to sever some of those relationships that were toxic to us or no longer serving our highest goods. Many of those relationships that we possibly also viewed or that won't ever be the same. Or valued, some of those relationships we valued that will no longer be the same. And with that also comes a loss of community. What about the pandemic isolation? I remember hearing people in my very own community in Madison, they would talk about feelings of depression, a sense of loss. Many were cut off from their friends and their family. That sense of suddenly having their communities just stripped away. It was almost like the rug had just been pulled out from under them. And I know Mindy and I were brand new to Madison. We hardly knew anybody. We felt like our community had just been completely stripped away at times. We missed those little touches by people, that in-person contact, that feeling of the energy of another person, another being in the room. All of that was just suddenly missing for a while. So I'll go back to the question, is community important? I ask the questions, does it nourish us? Perhaps on a spiritual level. And only you can answer that question for yourself personally, but I believe that it does. I believe that community helps to remind us of the oneness that we truly are. I also believe that it helps us to practice love, the groovy kind of love, or love as our superpower. And Jesus, our master teacher here at Unity, once said, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so must you love one another." I also believe community is important because we help to hold each other up when we're in communities. We help to challenge each other when we're in community, to push each other forward. As Ram Dass once said, we're all just walking each other home. Now, one of the ways in which I think we can begin to build true community feeds into another lesson I mentioned that I learned from Ken. his ability to be present. As we all know, so many things pull us away from being present in the moment, right? You look around, and I'm into I also do corporate work, and I'm into the latest buzzwords. I'm having to look at the latest buzzwords as a part of my job. And one of those is multitask, the word multitask. Look at job listings, probably more than just job listings, but job listings I think about, and you'll often see it in the skills that employers are looking for. The ability to multitask. Then some of our successes, whether it be promotions or other similar things about how we move through the world, are based off of this ability, or based off of how much we can juggle at one time. And the more you can juggle at once, the better off you are, right? It almost seems as if we live in a society where being able to handle about 10 things at once it's looked upon as this huge achievement. Wow, that Mary over there, now she can multitask. She's got one hand on her laptop while her phone's on her desk and she's reading emails and driving her kids to school all at once. But what they don't see is how Mary goes home at night is only a shell of who she truly is, because she's so burnt out that she can barely muster the attention to even brush her teeth. She's absent for her family. She's absent for her children. She's absent for those things that she once enjoyed doing. And we see it all around us. You can't even pump gas anymore without ads being blared in your face at the pump. They got those little TV screens and it's blaring commercials while you're trying to pump gas. They used to be kind of one of my little Zen moments, just pumping gas and kind of zoning out. But you can't do that anymore. And we just have these constant distractions in our faces all the time. I once read that one of the biggest killers of a relationship is smaller than a bread box, because it's our cell phones. News, the story of other people's lives on social media, these constant dings, pings, and beeps of our devices, they're always calling and vying for our attention. I remember once living in Madison, Mindy, my wife, and I went to a restaurant, and a couple sitting at a table caught my attention, and the couple was a mother and a daughter. And I remember seeing the little girl. She was probably no older than maybe 8 or 9. Her mother was sitting there, just eyes on her phone the entire time they sat there together. And the little girl was just kind of staring off into space, And I got to thinking, I was like, will that child always be that age? Will she always be at that point in her life where she's wanting to go and enjoy a lunch with her mother? And then her mother is sitting there, her attention focused on anything but her child at that moment. And I asked myself, what if we just simply set it all aside, even for just a moment? For a moment to become aware of the trees and the beauty all around us. Now, you mentioned the Sierra Nevada mountains a moment ago. Just being there present for those instances, for the God and the energy in the universe that we feel in those moments. The sounds of the birds in the park, the sounds of children screaming in delight, or of people laughing. We're able to go out in public now, just enjoying those moments of being able to do that and to become a part of our communities again. Maybe by even enjoying a meal, by eating mindfully, taking one bite at a time and fully savoring that bite before mindlessly reaching for another. Perhaps maybe just really sitting there and being present for another person, like I mentioned Ken doing. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is the only moment." Again, dwelling in the present moment, I know this is the only moment. And it is. It's the only moment we have, and it's the only true moment that we will ever have. So I think back to Ken. I think back to his willingness to be present. And I wonder, how can I do that as well? How can I also be fully present in each and every moment? And how can I cultivate this practice? Of course, at first, like anything else, it takes a willingness. It takes a willingness to practice self-awareness. It takes a willingness to begin to practice that self-awareness, to know when my mind is starting to wander, to know when I'm beginning to think of anything other than the present experience. I'm learning to play the guitar, and one thing I've learned is that you don't learn to play the guitar overnight. You practice. You become aware of your finger placement, and you practice it until you get better. And you practice it until one day you pick up the guitar and you're able to play it without even thinking about it. And community. So much has been so lost for so long. During the pandemic, we had empty sanctuaries, empty church sanctuaries, empty sanctuaries of spiritual centers. We had empty stores, empty streets. My wife and I, we would drive around Madison and just notice how empty everything was. We all mourned being able to gather together in each other's presence. We mourned being able to share the same spaces with others. I remember the joy when we were able to start gathering again. The comfort and joy I felt just at being able to be in the presence of other people. So I think back to Ken's question of why even have community? Sure, we can answer the obvious questions, and that community, helps us to prevent a sense of isolation. But community feeds us. Community presents us with opportunities to learn more about others and to learn more about ourselves. Sure, community can push our buttons at times, but it can also teach us more about what it means to love. Community can teach us to be present. It allows others to be there for us and us for them. In community, it's no longer us versus them and them versus us. It's only truly us. So perhaps the answer is more simple. I noticed that Ken answered some of his own questions on his diagram. Next to the question of why have community, he responded with simply just why not? So I invite you to just stop for a moment right now. Whether you're there in the church sanctuary or you're at home watching this, if you're in the church sanctuary, I invite you to just look around at your church community. Just look around at the people that are sitting next to you. And if you're at home, I invite you to close your eyes for a moment and to picture the faces of those who are in your community. You'll look into the eyes of each person there in the room with you, into the eyes of another, and realize that other that you're staring into, those eyes that you're looking into are a mirror. They're a mirror of yourself. You're looking to the eyes of another that's really not so separate from you. The eyes that are a part of you and you them. And I invite you to really be present when you look into the eyes of another. Don't just give a quick glance thinking about how you're going to get ahead and look into the eyes of everybody else. Look into the eyes of another person. That person that is a part of your community, and be present. Stop, look, and pause. And truly be there for each other. And truly be here. And be here now. Namaste, everybody. I am so honored again that I was invited to be here and to share with you. I wish I could look out and see all of your faces right now, but if you had Rotten Tomatoes and I was there in person, you might throw them at me for the Packers comment. So I ask for your forgiveness, and we teach that in Unity, forgiveness. So just remember to throw some forgiveness towards Reverend Evin in the mix, for my slight against the Green Bay Packers. But again, it's an honor to be here with you all. I thank you so much, and enjoy this beautiful, beautiful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Evin. I now invite you to begin to prepare yourself for reflective personal prayer and guided musical meditation, after which I ask that you remain in essential silence during the music. If you choose to, you may close your eyes. Feel the weight of your body as it relaxes into your chair and you let go of today's anxieties. Feel your feet on the solid earth beneath as you let go of tomorrow's worries. become aware in this moment of your breathing. As you breathe in life and breathe out love. Breathe in life and breathe out love. And as you become centered, focus your attention on your beautiful heart, your beautiful Christ self. Become filled with gratitude and allow into yourself that which fills you with peace and light. So we begin. now I invite you to gently return to this place.
That was wonderful. And now, with both feet on the ground again, we move from meditation to our affirmation of prosperity. This is the time in our service when those of us who think of Unity of Appleton as our spiritual home practice putting spirit first in our financial life. We know that when we do this, not only does it prosper the spiritual community we love, it also supports our own spiritual growth and prosperity. Let this be a time to connect with the guidance of Spirit in you and give whatever amount Spirit guides you to give. Whatever that amount is this morning, take it in your hand, bless it. If you are one of those growing in number of who give electronically, imagine taking that gift into your hand. Feel free to bless the plate as it passes by. Let yourself feel as grateful as you can to God in you as your one and only source. And then please join us in our affirmation of prosperity. Say with me, Unity of Appleton is alive with the energy of spirit, in the flow of divine abundance, and radiant with unlimited possibilities. And with together in celebration of our giving and receiving. Divine love in and through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I joyfully give and willingly receive. I give in love, and I trust God as my source. And now more music and the collection plate.
Be gentle with myself. I will be gentle with myself, and I will hold myself like a newborn baby child. I will be tender with my heart. I will be tender with like a newborn baby child. And I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. And I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. I will be easy with myself. I will be easy with myself, and I will hold myself like a newborn baby child. And I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. And I will only go as fast as the slowest wrestle with myself, and I will hold myself like a newborn baby child.
And now, up here on the board is announcements. Yep, fall is coming. Feel it in the air this weekend for sure. We may not want to think about fall yet, but mark your calendars for a call kickoff picnic on the lawn. Excuse me. Sunday, September 11th. Details to follow. That sounds like fun. The Art of Spiritual Peacemaking by James Twyman. This book is a collection of sacred wisdom inspired by an encounter between the author and Jeshua ben Joseph, also known as Jesus, at Israel's Dead Sea in 2003. The book will take several months to complete. There's a start date, Monday, September 8th from 6 to 7 at the home of Louise Taylor. If interested, contact Louise at her phone number, which you might want to just jot down right now. And another offering, The Only Little Prayer You Need by Deborah Landwehr Engel. In this inspiring book, Engel gives us a prayer that helps us heal our fear-based thoughts. This book study, led by Deb Walker, will last 6 weeks. Sign up by emailing Deb, and there are her contact numbers and names, or sign up at the Connect and Serve table. The start date for that is Wednesday, September 14th, from 7 to 8 here in the boardroom upstairs. Oh my goodness gracious. And then we have coming in October, Karen Sophie leading the 5 principles, and Life and Visioning with Michael Beckworth via Jay Keel. Lots and lots going on. And another sound immersion event, Sunday, August 28th at 7 p.m. Reserve your spot for the safety of everybody and giving each other room at unityofappleton.org. And for all of these, invite your friends, people who you associate with at work, at the Y, places that you are. Let people know about these. This is a part of the spiritual awakening that is part of our purpose for being here as a community. So let's make it happen. And now I will invite you to stand, and if you want to, raise your hands and bless each other with the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Namaste. One more song here as we go out.